A big storm setup is likely soon, and this video will have the focus on the late week and weekend time frame when that system is likely to get itself together. I'll also cover some more of the general weather across the USA. Today's weather video is going to go more in depth on that big storm on the way later this week that will impact millions of Americans. If you want to check out the video linked below in the pinned comment and description of this video with the thumbnail that is pictured now on screen, that video that I made just yesterday covers the overall 7-day outlook, including some of the near-term weather in the USA. A lot of that information is still relevant if you want to check it out. Again, that is linked down below. With that being said, I want to go ahead and start this video by overviewing the atmospheric setup for later this week and how it could contribute to some severe weather down at the surface. Let's start things by playing this out as we go out of our Tuesday and Wednesday and into our Thursday, where this blended guidance on screen is certainly indicating a strong low pressure system and associated trough or dip in the jet stream that will be moving out into the nation's midsection. You can see where the low pressure will likely be as we see a little bit of a break in the jet stream winds there, but cutting underneath the low, very strong winds in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere will be moving through from New Mexico and Texas all the way up to Missouri and Illinois and points in between. A very strong belt of jet stream flow will be pushing from the southwest to the northeast, but it's not really where you see the strongest winds in the atmosphere where you're going to get the best threat for severe weather, but it's actually on the leading edge of this trough. In that case, we're going to be seeing our best threat for severe weather on Thursday into Thursday night, where we get all these ingredients compiling ahead of the trough, and that is going to be in some parts of the mid and upper Mississippi Valley, the Midwest, and stretching over into some parts of the lower Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. If not Thursday, then into Thursday night. Storms will be likely around you, at least in those zones, and then we will not be done there. By the time we go out of our Thursday night and into Friday, as low pressure continues moving up towards some parts of the Great Lakes, a strong trough, a very broad trough at that, will continue moving underneath it from the southwest to the northeast, bring in a broad corridor of strong atmospheric winds, where underneath them we could get some severe weather. Really anywhere from the southern plains up to the Ohio Valley and mid-Atlantic and in points in between could be fair game for severe weather with this kind of setup on Friday, but I'll show you the specific zone that will have the better chance for detail in a minute. Beyond there, as that energy possibly fades out with that trough by the end of the weekend, we could see a new one developing towards the plains as we go towards early in the following week. So even once we go beyond this system that I'm talking about in this video, we'll probably have more severe weather to track as we go towards, say, May 20th and on. With a general overview of this storm setup now in mind, I want to use this blended guidance on screen to time out the zones with the best chance of rain and storms day by day. Specifically out of that late week system, you see a system there in the southeast U.S. as I'm starting this frame pushing out of Tuesday into Wednesday. Again, I talked about that in the overview video that I mentioned you could check out at the beginning of this one. So again, that link is down in the description if you want to check that out. But speaking of things to check out, check this out. With low pressure developing in North Dakota late on our Wednesday, May 14th, that's when we're likely going to get our first round of severe weather. Likely more of just an appetizer for what we'll see towards Thursday and Friday, but at least some isolated to scattered in severe weather, especially in the form of wind and hail, could develop as we see a cold front forming in the Dakotas and some parts of northeast Nebraska at least, stretching all the way back to Montana. And in parts of Wyoming and northern Colorado, rain and then higher elevation snow also look to be possible as low pressure kind of finishes wrapping up, and you will be on the cooler side of the system in those particular zones. Out of Wednesday and Wednesday night, and then as we push towards Thursday and Thursday night, that's when we see that cold front likely advancing east. It is, of course, invisible on this map. There's no big blue line showing where it's going to be, but you can generally see where this guidance is indicating storms will fire on up along and ahead of this invisible boundary. Really anywhere from far southeast Oklahoma and northeast Texas all the way up to the upper Midwest, we could get some level of storm development through Thursday and Thursday night in a very unstable environment. But the better chance for severe weather, of course, will be on the leading edge of that trough. We're likely going to get more storm coverage on the leading and northeast side of that particular trough that I showed earlier, heading out of the Midwest and up into some parts of the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Those could be the peak zones for severe weather and more in the way of coverage of storms Thursday and Thursday night. Low pressure will continue in southern Canada and some parts of the Great Lakes out of Thursday into Friday. There will even possibly be a few low pressure systems orbiting underneath the main one, and as that occurs, we will likely see a cold front advancing through some parts of the Midwest and Ohio Valley and into points east, while we could see storms anywhere from some parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast stretching all the way back down to the southern plains. The highest coverage looks to develop late Friday into Friday night around the Midwest, mid-Mississippi Valley, and then stretching over into some parts of Kentucky and Tennessee based on this guidance, so keep that in mind. And then from there, as we go out of Friday night through Saturday, we could continue to watch more rounds of at least isolated to scattered storms, some of which may be severe over particularly some parts of the south central and southeastern, maybe even the rest of the eastern U.S. Keeping all of that in mind, let's take a look at some risk zone graphics day by day. I'll also show you one of my custom risk zone graphics here in just a minute. This is the risk zone for May 14th, as well as the Wednesday night time frame from the Colorado State Machine Learning, and it highlights zones with a % chance of severe weather within 25 miles of any given point. In this case, it is saying for Wednesday and Wednesday night, there is a 15% chance of severe weather, what the Storm Prediction Center would call a slight risk, from eastern North Dakota down through eastern South Dakota and into eastern Nebraska. The Storm Prediction Center has a very similar area highlighted, so I think we can all agree those zones will have the best chance for at least a wind and hail threat during that time frame. By Thursday and Thursday night, this machine learning guidance is going really bullish, and I'm sure the Storm Prediction Center will eventually upgrade their probabilities after this video is posted, particularly somewhere around Lake Michigan. I see the ingredients really coming together in that zone for not only a wind and hail threat, but a tornado threat as supercells or some rotating line segments of storms that could be possible. But anywhere from Arkansas and Tennessee all the way up to Minnesota and in points in between, this guidance is saying there will be a 15% chance of severe weather within 25 miles of any given point. Do I agree? I agree in the most part. And here's a look at my ONW level 0 to level 7 severe weather scale that I normally post on the channel. I have the level 3 indicating scattered severe weather already being expected anywhere from northern Arkansas, northern Tennessee, curling all the way back up towards Minnesota. And I agree with the machine learning. I think right around the southern part of Lake Michigan is where the peak for severe weather will be. That's why I have highlighted the level 4 of 7 there already. What about Friday and Friday night? Looking at the machine learning guidance solely for this one, even though the Storm Prediction Center so far has only highlighted Kentucky, Tennessee, and some surrounding zones for the best chance of severe weather as of the time of this video, this guidance is saying Friday and Friday night could be bullish along that cold front, really anywhere from parts of mid-Atlantic and southeastern U.S. all the way back down to the south central plains. So once again, broad corridors need to be on alert, I think, and that's why I'm showing you these graphics at the end of this discussion. Keep in mind, in my next video, which is currently forecasted, get it, for Wednesday, I will be covering the ingredients for each day's severe weather, likely in more detail. One ingredient I can talk about in more detail here already at this point in time is the fact that we're going to have plenty of daytime heating day by day as a result of a ridge in the jet stream ahead of our storm. That just means the jet stream is being pushed to the north, allowing for warmer than average temperatures as we get a general south to north flow of winds all through the atmosphere and closer to the surface. Look at what the south to north winds at the surface will be doing on Tuesday, in particular over the plains, with a cutoff low currently in the southeast U.S. around that time at 70s there, but through the plains from Texas all the way up to the Dakotas and Minnesota, looking at 80s and 90s across the board. Many of those spots where you see boxes are anticipating record warm high temperatures, but there will be a cold front pushing into these warmer temperatures. Wednesday will be another hot one right through the nation's midsection. And then by Thursday, this is the day I really want to focus on. You can really see the actual boundary on the map. Low pressure sitting right here near the Dakotas and Minnesota border. There's your cold front extending back down to the south. Behind it, some 60s and 70s for highs through the high plains, as we've been in the 90s prior to this earlier through this week. Now we're seeing the 80s and 90s pushing east, and the biggest flow of all those 80s and 90s will be coming right on up here to the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Guess what? Right ahead of where storms are currently anticipated to develop starting Thursday afternoon, and then they'll push into that warm environment later through the evening. This is why, with daytime heating and other ingredients that I'll probably again talk about more in detail in a future video, we are looking at the peak of the severe weather threat in some of the zones that I've already been highlighting out of Thursday into Friday. The peak of some of our heat will be with mid and upper 80s right here in that peak target zone in some parts of Missouri and surrounding spots. So once again, ahead of cold fronts where you get all the daytime heating, that's where you tend to get the best chances for severe weather. With that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hit the subscribe button down below if you are not already subscribed to this channel. God bless you everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.